like, okay, hold on a second, we cannot lose, and we're already losing. And someone, let's call it the new buyer, they have to understand that, and they have to have the pity, and they have to give us the full asking because we're already hurting. And we definitely see examples nearing 50% off, right, from the peak. So I think we will also see a flat line. We will see more choking in the market. We will see more drama. All right, folks, so 43% loss from the peak. I'll talk about this property. I will share my screen, and I have a personal experience with this agent, the property, and the process of this particular property. So this property is in Niagara Falls. However, it is not unusual to see drops all across Toronto GTA, but this one is specific, right? And then you have commentators, viewers, spectators, people on the sideline stating or waiting for that particular significant drop in the market, right? And in this example, you will see it's a 43% off. However, when we go beyond these numbers, if we go back into history a little bit deeper, we see that even at this price that the property was actually sold at, it seems still too high. So is there room for more improvement when it comes to actual real estate pricing in Toronto and Toronto GTA? So let's talk about this property. We'll get into this property here. It's located at 7646 Goldenrod Trail. It is in Niagara Falls. It is a detached property. So I'll tell you exactly how I fit in this particular picture. But for now, let's look at the property. Stunning, right? Like they have a beautiful driveway. The house from the outside looks decent, brilliant, no brick, but fine. Double door entry, beautiful. I mean, like the floors, even me walking through this property at the time, it felt a little bit on the cheaper end, right? But it is what it is. Some people like the dark floors, some people don't. Nothing spectacular. The kitchen, like even at the time, like I looked at this, backsplash, and it seemed like dirty, or I don't know what was happening, but okay, whatever. Like it is what it is. The property showed okay at the time, and I'll tell you exactly what happened in a second. But now let's get into pricing. So this property in 2015 sold for $445,000. So now let us go back. Let us remember how 2015 felt like, right? So I remember trading at that time, and I believe in 2015 it already started with the theme of overpriced properties, right? People could not really get their head around this particular segment that, a property in Niagara Falls could fetch close to $500,000 in 2015. But people could manage, right? Construction was booming, right? Automotive industry, our economy was strong. Interest rates at the time, I don't remember exactly, but they were like, hovering, below 5% as far as I can remember. And it was still manageable, right? Because people could carry their real estate properties, investment properties, and everything else with their income. Now, this is what happened. So in 2022, February, so this is right the peak, right at the peak. This property sold at $1,350,000. That is insane. That's almost $1 million gain, right? So at the time, what I don't understand at this moment, and I'll get into exactly what happened after that, but I don't understand that person that purchased this property at 1,350,000 at the peak. What was the motivation? Like, I just don't get it. What was it? What were they hoping for? This property they purchased at 135. So were they hoping this property will, end up being $2 million in Niagara Falls? Or were they saying, okay, this is it. This is a property that I would love to spend the rest of my life here, and that's it, right? Like, the trophy house, the end house kind of thing, right? So I think that was not the concept. I believe even at the time of this purchase, people were saying like, look, it got to 135. There's still more room to grow, which is insane, right? So I have no idea what was happening, but they clearly rented it out. What they're trying to rent it out in 2022, right after 6 months for 1,800. I don't know if this was the basement or the upper floor, but how I arrived in this picture was somewhere around here, 2023 October. So this property was listed for 1,199,000. So my phone rang. A client, a lead from Alberta. She was moving to Niagara Falls because her family lives in Niagara Falls. She's in the medical field. Ellis Dawn is building that hospital. Everything is kind of matching. And we were around looking at different properties and whatnot. And at the time of 2023, this property was definitely overpriced. So where we kind of ended up like talking to this particular lead or client, we were saying like somewhere around $1 million. So I said, okay, so I called the agent. We were kind of talking as far as I can remember now. And they were saying, well, look, my clients cannot go that low because they would lose money. See the philosophy? I said, well, hold on a second. Like they can't, like they're losing money already. So are they going to move forward? Well, that's not realistic. $1 million is not realistic in 2023. So we ended up purchasing something else. Their claim at the time was like, well, this property is in a very good location and this and that and all of the stuff. The marketing pitch, I get it, no problem. My clients ended up buying something way below $1 million, a bigger house, a better layout, in my opinion. So, but the whole point is the push and pull. The philosophy now was like, okay, hold on a second, we cannot lose, and we're already losing. And someone, let's call it the new buyer, they have to understand that, and they have to have the pity, and they have to give us the full asking because we're already hurting. So, like, for a long time, that seemed the philosophy. I could not get it because the market can fetch what the market can fetch. A buyer can offer whatever they can offer, and there's no, I would say, bad feelings or hurt. Like it's an open market. I can bring you an offer of $300,000. Well, if it's going to go through or not, it depending on the negotiation and the appetite. But why are people are getting all uptight with low or high or mid or whatever you want to call offers? So, anyways, so what ended up happening that surprised me in 2023, they were at this price. And then in 2024, in January, right, they relisted this property for 1,249,000. So we have seen again an increase in list price. And this is where the MLS like the MLS like triggers, and the calculator overall says, well, look, the market is booming. Like we can see the numbers are rising, right? But nobody's looking at the DOM, days on the market, sold statistics, what they lost already, carrying costs, and all of that stuff that goes along with this particular calculation. So I saw this again. I was scratching my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't know. Good luck. Like maybe you guys are using the philosophy of market already rebound because it's been 24 months since the peak. So somehow, like by default, the market has to rise, right? And that's another segment I could not understand. Why does it have to rise? It can decline for another 2 decades. Like where is the measurement? There's no measurement. We can predict based on history and this and that. And even today in 2026, many are saying we hit the bottom. Stop predicting. Nobody can predict the bottom. No one, right? Like you can have a personal, I would say, statistic or feel or how you feel. Maybe you have a better job. Maybe more than one person is employed now. Maybe you don't have a lot of debt. Maybe you can carry $1 million, right? And you can say, well, for me, it makes sense and I can do it, right? But like, for example, my personal opinion is that I don't believe anything of any major significance will happen between 2030. Nothing. Like we will see more drops. We will see these cases where people lose more than the average 25%. In this case was 43%. And depending on the community, on the city, town situation, and we definitely see examples nearing 50% off, right, from the peak. So I think we will also see a flat line. We will see more choking in the market. We will see more drama. And then who knows what happens, because we cannot predict even beyond 2030. We don't know if there will be even an appetite. Maybe all nation of Canada will be a renter nation and nobody will be able to afford, or bank will not have the appetite to allow everyone to walk into the bank with a pulse and get a $2 million mortgage, right? So we don't know, but I don't think that anything will happen of major significance. So moving on forward, we see in 2024, 1-1, then in 2025, they went below the 1 million mark, and finally they sold it in December of 2025 for $775,000. Now the interesting segment is that these buyers, they bought it for 135, sold for 775. Significant drop, 43%. Now, we have to also calculate the carrying costs, taxes, utilities, maintenance, mortgages, second mortgages, private lending. I don't know their situation, but most of the time, this is what we're kind of looking at. But there's a small difference here. And the difference is that this particular original buyer bought this property for $445,000 in 2015, and they sold it in 2022 for $1,350,000. So now you see that someone gained already $1 million. Now, depending on their situation, because most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, whenever we have seen these examples that somebody bought, like, for 445, sold for 135, all of a sudden, they are not only a millionaire on paper, they're really truly a millionaire in equity. It's in the bank. They have the money, right? So most of the time, I have seen people pull more triggers, right? greed triggers. They bought bigger property. They diversified their portfolio. They went into investments of all kinds, usually condos, right? Putting the down payments, acting big, kind of trying to ride this infinite train of impossible possibilities. So if they cashed out and kind of chilling, good for them. If they didn't, they could have been worse than this buyer that sold now for 775 and lost 43% of equity. Now the question is, how many years or decades do these people need to recover, to gain back, right, their equity? That's the one question. And the second question is, what do you think personally, right, and sincerely, how long will it take for this particular property to see these prices back again? So peak to peak pricing. So from 775 back to $1,350,000. So ladies and gentlemen, I think it will take decades before we see the peak pricing back again on the table. All right, so I hope you gained some value. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.